To make the side string of our necklace, I'm going to use a Nymo beading thread. Any similar sort of beading thread will do the job very nicely, and I'm going to use it double. Now I'd like to make a bead and loop fastener for my necklace, so I'm going to add the bead fastener first. So I've got my double thread, and I've got about 3/4 metre of double thread, and I've tied a keeper bead that's just on a simple knot like that. That's a spare bead, and I'm going to position that about 15 centimetres from the end. Now that won't take any part in the actual design, it'll be removed later so I can finish off those ends. Right, so I've got a seed bead, and that's the bead I'm going to use for my clasp, and I'm just going to put one seed bead on after that and bring them down to the keeper. And now I'm going to pass back through my clasp bead and the seed bead I put on first and pull that through. And that's pulled that second seed bead up into an anchor. So that's going to be the centre back of my necklace, and that's the bead that will form the clasp. I now need to put on sufficient seed beads to come from the back of my necklace all the way around to this side here. So that's going to take a little moment, so I'll be back in a second when I've got sufficient seed beads on. So I've threaded on sufficient seed beads to make this side of the necklace. So if I curve that around to the meeting point there, you can see this will be the centre back of the necklace. This is one side down to the front junction with our decorative centrepiece. Now because I'm using size 8 seed beads, I'm not going to make a loop of seed beads to go through this hole because it would be too chunky. So I'm just going to pass the needle directly through our connecting loop and back through the first seed bead. So I've just got a thread loop making the connection. Now if I was using size 10 seed beads or smaller, I would have put on perhaps 6 or 7 extra seed beads and then back through the first of those few I'd put on. So I'd got a seed bead loop here connecting to the wire loop. But in the size 8 seed beads that would be too chunky. So just a thread loop will do the job. And now I go back up through all of these seed beads. It's really important you don't miss any. So take your time and pass all the way back up through the seed beads. Oops, it's caught around there. And the ding you heard was my hand hitting my work light. And the heavy breathing you can hear is my doggy coming into the room to say hello. There we are, all the way back to our original keeper bead. Now I can take that keeper bead off now, get it out of the way. And I want to strengthen the bead tag, so I'm going to go up through the bead tag, through the anchor bead on the end, and back down to my starting thread. There we are. Now I could just finish the thread off there, but because I've only got one double thread hooking over this wire loop here, I'm going to take the needle all the way down again and all the way back to this position before I finish off. So I'll just do that and I'll be back to you. Right, so I've gone all the way down through that wire loop again and back through the beads. So I've actually got 4 strands of thread over this little loop here, so it's really strong. 8 thicknesses of thread going through the beads, which makes it extremely strong. Now I need to just finish off these 2 sets of ends. This is the needle end and the tail ends. Now I can at this point just tie them together, so that's just a normal knot and pull it down between the beads, and a normal knot and pull it down between the beads, and that is now secure. So I'm going to take my needle down through a few beads before I trim. That means I don't leave a tuft of thread at my knot. And I can now neaten these 2 ends in the same way. So pop 1 thread at a time onto the needle, and I would pass them in the opposite direction. So that's one end done. And this is the second end. There we go. Pass that way. And that's the first side string made. Now the second side string will need a loop that will fit over this bead here. I've already prepared a needle with a double length of thread, again about 75 centimeters of double thread. I'm going to make the loop itself first. So I'm going to put on a keeper bead with a loose knot. Then I'm going to put on a couple of seed beads that will lead up to the knot, the loop. Now I need to guesstimate how many beads I need to make a loop that will just fit over that bead there. So I've got, that's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. It takes more than you think. So I'm going to make a loop from 17 beads and just, wow, I think I've got that right first time. That's 17 beads, so it's 17 beads in the loop. Those are the first 2 I put on. Let's just try that again. That will hold, but it will slide through. That's super. So I'm going to pass in the opposite direction through the first 2 seed beads I put on, and that's towards the keeper bead. So you can see there I've got my loop of 17 seed beads and the 2 seed beads I first put on. I now make the rest of the strap in the same way, so I need to put on sufficient beads to come all the way down to this loop, and then I will reinforce it the same way I did this. So here's our project complete. I've finished the loop side of the necklace in exactly the same way as the bead side, and that functions really nicely as a clasp in keeping with the style of the design we've made. Now I've made this with a few beads from my stash and a few beads from a bead mix, but actually the only important and vital piece of equipment is the wire. This is 0.5mm soft wire, and I'm glad to say this comes in lots of different colours, so it gives you lots of different options. So you can go for purple, pink, green, black, silver or gold. There's loads to choose from. I hope you'll give it a go. It's a delightful project, really quite easy to make, and it makes a superb gift. Thank you for joining me. See you soon.